Today we've got a Renault Captur. It's a 2014 model. It's got 68,000 miles on the clock and is fitted with the 1.5 diesel engine. As part of the service on this vehicle I'm completing today, we're going to do an oil and filter change. The oil filter is between these two pipes right there. It's a spin-on type. And as with all oil and filter changes, I like to pull the dipstick and take the oil filler cap off. And as you can see on the Renault, it's part and parcel of the same thing. So I'll take this out and put it on the bench. The Renault has a square shaped key way on the sump plug. So you're going to need an adapter of some sort. I've got this little box set with all different shaped bits and pieces and a socket to undo it, or a spanner. I've got a few different things here for undoing the oil filter. This device, I think, doesn't go down small enough to grab the oil filter on this car, but I'll try it anyway. We've got an oil filter strap there which just wraps around, and you put your ratchet and extension bar in the end and it should grip hold of the filter and crack it loose. Also got some big grips there which are what I usually use for spin-on oil filters, although the access is a bit restricted on this vehicle. Got an extension bar there which can be useful if I use one of these caps to go on the oil filter. They're the same shape as a metal oil filter, and sometimes they're good for undoing the plastic housings as well. You can pick up a set relatively cheap. What else have we got? Hammer and drift there. Sometimes you need to tap these down on top of the oil filter, get a nice snug fit. I've also got a 10mm and a Torx 30 to get the undertray off, and a pair of snips handy just in case there's any cable ties or clips you need to lever off. Right, I'm going to see if I can take this piece of pipe off out of the way so we can access the oil filter. Prise that off of there. That's it. One bit of inlet trunking. I was kind of hoping it'd spin round on that, but that's just popped out. Gives us a little bit more room. I'll see what I've got that will fit on that filter. Usually I would use these grips to undo a spin-on oil filter, but as you can see, I don't think there's much chance of getting these in there. So I've got some like the metal cups which are the same shape as the filter, which I could try, but I've also got one of these, which is just a strap. Give this a go and see if we can crack it loose. Hopefully the strap won't snap. I've had that happen before. Cool. That is quite tight. Either that strap's going to snap or it is going to come loose. that's got stuck on there. I reckon the strap's going to snap. I think I'll give up with that one and try something else. Try not to touch that starter motor and short that out. Difficult to get the right angle. But it has moved a touch. Right, so I've just tapped one of the cups on there. Managed to crack it loose with the grips. The cup didn't seem to grip it tightly before, but now that I've mangled the top of that oil filter out of shape, it's actually got a hold of it. Put some blue roll down there because we're going to get some oil running out. Get this out of the way. That's it. Just got to try and get the cup back off of it now. So to start with, I tried unscrewing it by hand, but it was obviously way too tight. I did try one of the cup tools, but unfortunately that slipped on the filter. Didn't really get a hold of it that well. So I tried the strap a couple of times, and as suspected, yeah, that snapped. So in the end, I did try and get the grips in there, and as you could see, you could just about get on there. It's very tight, but managed to crack it loose, and by using those, deformed the oil filter quite a bit, but actually tapped this back on and it got a hold of it. So that's the little stories for removing the oil filter. So this is the new oil filter. As you can see, I've got a little bit of grease. You can use a bit of engine oil, anything really, just to hopefully prevent it sticking again in future. And you can see there's quite a bit of oil down there. I did jam that blue roll down there to try and catch the worst of it. Yeah, that's a bit mucky. I shall retrieve that in a moment. But just make sure the old seal is in the old oil filter when you take it off, because sometimes they can stick to the housing. They do just pull out. And obviously you don't want that stuck on there when you're trying to fit a new filter. So this filter, it isn't a genuine Renault one, it's an aftermarket one. As with all the parts that you get for your car, wherever you go, as long as you've got your registration number, they should be able to look up the relevant parts for your particular engine. Look at that. You should be able to get a filter for under £10, an aftermarket one. Just make sure the oil filter's hand tight. That's come unclipped. That should be on there. Let's get this air intake pipe on. That's it. You can see it's got like a little tab there. It's got one top and bottom, so they just need squashing in to release it. Should just push straight in. Yeah, that's in there. Clip that back in. There we go. And next I think we'll take it up in the air and remove the under tray. As with most cars nowadays, they've got a plastic belly pan, under shield, under tray, whatever you want to call it. This one, it looks like it's held up with Torx 30 bits. I'm going to use a gun just for speed really, and 10mm bolts at the back. So let's get this tray off. Now this sump plug is right here, right at the bottom, facing downwards. As you can see, it's like a square drive. You can get sets of tools, all different shapes and sizes. So I've got one here that fits. It actually fits in a large spark plug socket, which is quite handy. Always a little bit messy, these ones that face directly down rather than going in the side. So it's a cold engine, so it's going to take a little bit longer to drain out. That's it. We'll just leave it to drain down for a while. Now, before I put the sump plug back in, worth checking the washer. They're usually good to go several times. Just make sure it hasn't been crushed or split. They're usually copper or aluminium. Some have rubber O-rings on them, but that looks fine. So we'll go ahead and screw that back in. It's slowed down to a steady drip now, which could go on for hours if you leave it. But I'm confident we've got pretty much all the oil out. It's been probably dripping for about half an hour, 40 minutes now. So just nip that up. As with all fittings on a car, well, not just a car, mechanical fixings in general, push bikes, motorbikes, garden furniture, you'll find a tightening torque for anything. But you just got to be sensible, nip it up, don't do it too tight, and definitely don't leave it too loose. Okay, so we'll drop the ramp down next and put some oil in. Right, got a funnel here. Now I need to be careful with these. I usually pull the dipstick out as well, so when you pour the oil in, the air can come out of the engine through the dipstick hole, but being as it's all in one on these Renaults, they're quite a slow filler. You've got to be careful that it doesn't glug back up. So it's going to take a while. I'll just carry on and get this oil in. So when you go to get your parts, just make sure you've got your registration with you, and your outlet will be able to recommend a type of oil for your particular engine and a quantity. They recommended 5.5 litres for this one. You should be able to get 5 litres for around about the £50 to £60 mark. Obviously then you'll need to buy a little bit more to top it up. I'm not going to just whack 5.5 litres in. I'm going to go with about 5.2 and then run it and dip it. purely because it's much easier to top up in dribs and drabs rather than put the 5.5 in and find actually that's a bit too much and then have to get underneath and try and drain a little bit off. Having too much oil in an engine can cause damage, and having not enough can obviously cause damage, a different type of damage. Right, so that's just about 4 litres. I'm going to go and grab another 1.2. Right, I'm going to stop there. That's about 5.2, it's just over 5 litres. Get this dipstick and cap back in, and we'll run it up. Oil filter's tight, sump plug's tight, oil in, that's tight. Ooh. So I'm just going to start it up and let it tick over. You don't need to rev it. In fact, it's not really a good idea to rev an engine that's just been started, particularly if it's been drained of oil as well. It will take a little while for the oil to circulate. So the oil pressure light went straight out, which is definitely a good sign. It sounds good. That'll do. I just wanted the oil to circulate, refill the new filter. So now we'll just let it stand for probably 5 minutes or so. They're always a little bit tricky, these Renault ones, because the oil is still in the pipe where you filled it up, so it takes a little while for it to settle down before you can dip it and get an accurate reading. So we'll just let that stand for a little while and see where the level's at. Right, here's the dipstick, and you can see it's fairly clear. There's the minimum there with an arrow pointing up to it, that line, and maximum there, arrow pointing down to the line. So let's get this in and see if we can get a reading from it. Got to make sure that that's down and home properly to get an accurate reading, and that the car's on a flat level surface. Oh yeah, as you can see, still got a little bit to go, which is good. It's not overfilled. So as I was saying, just need to top that up in little dribs and drabs and keep checking. Get it as close to the maximum as you can without going over. Okay, again we'll leave that to stand and settle. You don't need to run it up again because the filter and galleries and everything have already been filled with new oil. Right, I've put a drop in there. I'll let it settle. Hopefully it's settled for long enough. Oh yeah, we're getting closer to the maximum. I'll go ahead and put another little dribble in there. Just have to keep repeating this process until you're happy with the level. Alright, that's had a couple of small top-ups from the initial fill. And as you can see, that's a couple of millimetres down from the maximum. I'm not going to add any more at this stage because the longer it stands there, it will settle down and the level will creep up slightly. And I don't want it to be overfilled. So that's about that. Next we'll take it up in the air and get that under tray back on. Well, that just about brings the job to an end. I'm going to, as I do with most of my jobs, give this a run around the block, run it back in here, and just make sure there are no leaks.